I think just about every Super League team's got their own TV channel now, so I don't think it makes much difference, and I don't think someone that doesn't attend the games is any lesser because they are putting money into the club, in the watch on Sky, they're helping with the next deal. Just on missing weddings, I actually missed Simon's wedding because Cass plays Sheffield Eagles. I don't know you're listening, Simon, so sorry for that. 20 years ago, but...
Well, you're still good mates now.
Yeah, we're still mates.
Alan, you come from this from a different angle because you don't go to all the games now.
Right, you know.
But you're involved in something like this, and someone who isn't a fan wouldn't give up their free time to talk about the game. So are we being too picky when we're trying to define these things anyway? And is it really that we just respect everyone's contribution to the game and instead of discourage people, encourage them to do what they can to support the game?
I think there's two things I'd want to say about this. I think it's true now that I'm more of a, if you stick with your language definition, I'm more of a supporter now than a fan. But during my years, I've been a fan for years as well, and so my support has ebbed and flowed based on what else is going on in my life. And I think that will happen to everybody at some point, or most people.
I sense that I won't go to as many away games now that Emma's finished all of her studies, that she might want to do things with me at weekends.
You might not have the same time, as children come into the picture. That changes things. Study, work, whatever. Things get in the way, and finances as well. Sometimes that changes, but every club needs a mixture of all of the above. They need the people who come to the big games, or might just come to the big derby games to fill the stadium up. But they also need people who go home and away and follow them everywhere. They need a mixture of all of these things. You can't. I think it's very easy to sit there and kind of slag other people off about, well, you don't go to this game, or you haven't got a season ticket anymore. It's like, well, we shouldn't be judging people based on that. You don't know what people's individual circumstances are, and it's very easy, particularly on the internet, to slang insults around about people's faces. But I think we need all of the above, particularly rugby league. Rugby league needs to be a broader church as is humanly possible. And if there are things that we can do around
marketing our events.
So whether it's to students, whether it's to people from other communities, and just taking one for example, kind of linking to what Bob said, Bradford, I think, have done a diabolical job to engage with the communities within its boundaries. In terms of, if you look at the faces, it's a white, still a white male, dominated crowd, and that's it's not reflective, and it's
the communities around the grounds now.
Exactly, and it's not. In the longer term, that doesn't speak well for the sustainability of the sport in its broadest sense.
So, Sarah, you go to as many games as you possibly can, almost all the games. You probably at away games see the same people regularly, the same sorts of people. At away games. Do you find that the people who do go every week are a bit more blinded to some of the things that other fans can take a step back at and look at? Not yourself, obviously, but some of the other people around you, some of the 2-pint women that you talk about.
I don't know. I think sometimes it's those that go every week that are a bit more realistic, because we were there when we lost 80 whatever it was at Warrington the other week,
and 70 whatever it was at Wakefield the week before.
A month before. You see, there were a few more people there, but certainly at the Warrington match there weren't very many people. At the Saints match we definitely saw a handful of people, and that was all there was. And again, I think on Friday at Wigan there'll be a similar number, and they are the ones that hardcore, stupid, whatever you want to call them,
but it's almost
the
like
ones that have been probably watching for quite a long time, and they've realised that watching the club, it's an up and down thing. It's not the glory of the last 2 years. There's so much more to watching a club, and actually sometimes we've found that the best atmospheres are when you are there and you know that you're going to get stuffed.
And you take the lead at the start and then get stuffed anyway.
Yeah, I mean, not the Warrington match, but the Saints match the other week, we knew we weren't really in with a chance, but we all went with the right attitude of, we're here, we're not expecting anything, but we're here because that's what you do.
And to me, it's like those people like that aren't the people the clubs should be focusing their time and money on in terms of the marketing, because they don't need to reach those people. They've reached those people. Those people have got memberships to the supporters club or online subscriptions, go on the forums. It's the people that they need to engage with outside of that. It's the supporters that actually we need to be focusing on. And most of the people that listen to this would fall under the supporters category, because I know a lot of our listeners are either overseas or in different parts of the country, a little bit of a distance away, and engaged with this show because it gives you that link into fandom that you don't get anymore. Whereas that value shouldn't be lost, and that's, to me, so that's kind of where I sit on it. It's irrelevant, and I never would sit there on a thing telling someone who you didn't go to the game so you don't know, because most of the people I experience who go to every game they're blindly supporting the club, whatever. They have a sense of realism, like you say, about it's not always great, but also at the same time they don't always pick up on everything. They'll have the views and they'll stick to them.
I think it is a pyramid. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a hierarchical as in one's better than the other, but if you look at your top tier, it is those that go home and away every week, come what may, and that's your smallest number. And like you said, they're the ones that you don't need to entice to matches, but I think the clubs have an obligation to do something to reward them, like Hull did. So for the junior takeover, that was only kids that were season pass holders, which I think is really good to actually give the members something. And then you've got your next level down who maybe are your season pass holders but don't go to away matches, and then after that you've got people that maybe rock up if there's nothing better to do or whatever. And at each level I think the club has, and the sport as a whole, has an obligation to each layer of fans or supporters, but what they need to do is different, because at that bottom level you want to push them further up the pyramid. I
think that's really interesting. I actually think that's the key thing that I take from this sort of conversation nowadays, compared to in the past where it was just watching people argue on internet forums about the same thing. You weren't there, you don't know sort of comments. But now, and I'll let you finish on this, Langers, to see if this is kind of what you were driving at in any way, shape or form anyway, and it's, do clubs do enough to engage with all the levels of that? I know at the club I support, I am involved in some fan engagement activity at the moment with that club, and they are trying to get at all the different levels, and I've seen that through the things they've planned and the questions they're asking of us as the members in the group and who they pick to be in the group. Are you satisfied that you as a supporter are getting the right amount of attention, and could they do more to engage you? Or
no, I mean, I'm kind of an ex-season ticket holder, so I am going to go when I can go and things. But there doesn't seem to be a lot. I don't see a lot of marketing out there going to drive at the casual fan to draw them in. I mean, as Scoot says, they do kind of do some things for members, and they get a kind of preferential treatment for some things, which is right, and I think they should, as we say, they should be recognised. As a whole, it is not great, and we don't recognise kind of the different levels. There isn't that. I mean, if you're encouraging someone to start going to, say, Wigan or Bradford or Cass, what would you say to them? So if you come along, this is what you can get, kind of thing. It's just, we just say, come along, you'll have a crack, you'll have a couple of beers before the game, chat to a lot of like-minded people, hopefully see a good game, and then you go home. And there isn't really a hook from the club to get them in. I sometimes
it's almost like the fan base itself is the thing that gets you.
Yeah, we're the people that get new fans in. I think if you did something like, if you buy kind of attend 3 home games, then you maybe get like a 10% discount on on next season's shirt or something like that. Or if you attend 6 games, you get a 15% discount and all that kind of thing. I mean, that's just kind of spitballing some of the things, but
that's the key. To me, that should be the key thing about this. It isn't about fans bickering between themselves who cares the most about the club, because there's so many circumstances that those things that came in mentioned.
I don't see that at Cass. I don't know if you do it at your bigger clubs, your more successful clubs, but
we have different types of memberships at Wigan. Yeah, so you can be a member that.
No, what I'm saying is I don't see any bickering online between the fans and the club. All on the forum. I must admit I don't go on the forum very much, but Langers is right. That's how I got into the game. Dean and Steve took me down, and then a couple of years later started doing 2-pint pots. The rest is history. But I can't recall any advertising from Cass. I mean, we're talking, I'm not going to show my age, but a long time ago now. But I think that certainly at Cass, your season ticket holders do get benefit. We get loads of benefits. We get 10% off it here, there, and everywhere. What I don't think they do is I don't think they advertise it very much. It's almost after you've bought the ticket that you realise what you get. Yeah, I think that's where they could do a bit more.
I think they need to be smart about. Like for example, so I'm thinking when I bought my ticket when I went to Wakefield as a neutral early in the season. I bought it online. Obviously, you've got to give your details then, because I don't think they took cash on the turnstiles, if I remember correctly. You've got to buy a ticket. So therefore, they pull you in. Then they've got your details. I think that.
I know I always get emails from Saints about their 19-man squads, and I'm thinking, I wish I'd have just paid on the gate for that Rabbitohs game all them years ago.
But this is the thing, though, that's probably a bad example. But
no, that's the point that they do. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah. We notice you haven't been to a game for X number of weeks. Can we get you in if we give you a £5 discount off your ticket or something? And it's got to be your marketing has got to be intelligence driven rather than just a blanket approach. You've got to understand your potential market, and you've got to know your fans who are wavering slightly or they just haven't bought a season ticket this year. But you still need to be talking to them, and you need to be saying, well, have you thought about coming down for a game? Here's a voucher for a £10 off or whatever. That you can't. You've always. That's marketing. That's basic marketing, isn't it?
I'm disappointed that no one came to this with fuck them like that, don't have a season ticket, because that would have think things get spicy. But anyway, I think we got to the crux of the problem really here. Is we should be focusing on what fans think of each other. We should be focusing on how we all give as much as we can to our game because we love it. And on the topic of people that I love, I'm going to do my thank yous now for the 200th episode. So I've got a little list that I'm going to do, and I think I've got to start with the biggest thank you, which has to go out to my wife Emma, my long-suffering wife Emma, because without her letting me do the show every week, and it taking up a lot of our time, less and less of our time as we've learned new ways of doing things, but without Emma, the show wouldn't be what it is. So I think you should all be thanking Emma, even though she's only ever appeared on it 2 or 3 times over its span. Quite a lot of people have now met Emma, so they realise what she goes through watching me watch sport. The second thank you has to be to our lapsed old dad, Tom, who he doesn't love us anymore. He doesn't pay any maintenance for you, but there would have been no show without Tom, and he did 168, I think, of these shows with me, or even some without me. So we should thank Tom and remember the part he played in all of this. If anything, I would never have started listening to podcasts if Tom didn't start listening to podcasts around the similar time that I did, and the idea kind of came out of that. And Tom was the first one to suggest we did a podcast. I was the first one to suggest the podcast should be about rugby league because we didn't know anything else. And he did a better intro than I do, is what I'm told. Moving on, as we had to do this year because of Tom's decision to step down, and it's the regular co-host that I want to thank first, Tim, who's not here but we will hear from in the show because I didn't want to exclude him from having his voice heard in this special episode 200. Sarah, who is here, who does a great job stepping in once a month or so and gives us that perspective that I can't give, which is a fan, and Tim can't give, which is a fan who takes their children to the game. So it actually helps us give a different view on the show that